This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. The government today reported that not even multi-billion-dollar drought losses stopped the American economy from a sizzling springtime showing. Now booming exports and business spending fueled a U.S. economic performance that cheered the White House and Republican candidates this election year. CBS News business correspondent Ray Brady reports.
It's all systems go. Factories are working near capacity. Americans are buying what those factories turn out, and we're even shipping more abroad. So the economy grew a healthy 3.1% in the second quarter of this year, only slightly less than its growth earlier.
The American economy is almost in super condition. It's continuing to expand, and the expansion's coming from everywhere.
The wheels would have turned even faster except for the drought. It's cost Americans $5.5 billion so far. But what was lost on those parched plains was more than made up in places like this.
So you could wear the plaid along with the houndstooth.
Everything's selling at Smart Parts, a New York garment maker that was almost driven out of business by foreign competition.
For the last 2 or 3 years, it had been on a downward spiral, and now the roller coaster is just working its way to the top.
The low-priced American dollar is enabling whole industries to slug it out with foreign competitors, powering the economy forward.
The weaker dollar is a major factor in stimulating economic activity. It really has gotten American manufacturing out of its own recession.
Any time I can get goods for the same price made in this country as what they have in the Far East or in Europe, I'm going to buy things that are made here.
For the Democrats, today's economic news could put a damper on their chances in November.
The pocketbook issue is the most critical issue that ever faces a presidential candidate, and Bush has got that one locked up.
Still, there's one worrisome note in today's report. Inflation's growing by 4.7% a year, and that's its biggest rise since late 1982. Dan?
Ray, even that kind of inflation, could that affect the election outcome, you think?
Well, it could if we saw it by election day, but the chances are that the average person is not going to really feel that rate until 1989 after the election.
Which is the reason the Republican candidates are smiling today. Thanks, Ray. For the Bush campaign, besides today's good economic news, the focus of the day was on the process of picking George Bush's running mate and trying to build some drama and suspense about it for next month's Republican nominating convention in New Orleans. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer reports now on who's hot and who's not on the Bush running mate shortlist.
As Bush posed for these publicity shots with young scientists today, pollster Robert Cheater and other top advisors were back at the vice president's office weighing pluses and minuses of possible running mates. Leading the short list, according to sources, conservative New York Congressman Jack Kemp and Senate Republican leader Bob Dole.
Could it be you? I doubt it.
Even though they were bitter rivals in the primaries, Kansas-born Dole could help where Bush is weakest, the Midwest Farm Belt. But that is the good news. If he's chosen, Democrats are sure to play back his slashing primary attacks on Bush, and there were some humdingers.
I'm still waiting for him to tell me what decision he's made in the past 7 years that's made a difference in America.
And show me why we should trust your judgment on foreign policy. Show me, George.
Was Noriega on the payroll when he was CIA director?
These days, of course, Dole playfully pleads amnesia.
We used to go out and debate each other and say things about one another. I can't remember precisely what they were, but...
Kemp was more polite and could help with blue-collar workers and the young, but he ran poorly in the primaries, probably couldn't deliver his home state, New York.
The single most important thing is for the American people to feel that the person in the number 2 slot could immediately fill the number 1 slot.
Others getting a serious look, Kansas Senator Nancy Kassebaum. Farmers and women like her, the right wing doesn't.
It's George Bush accompanied by Governor Jim Thompson!
Illinois' Thompson is a governor high on the list and is strong in the Midwest. The flip side, he proposed a state tax hike, and the far right can't stand it. And there's California Governor George Duke Majian, simply because California is crucial. The Republican Duke is a dull campaigner, though, and says he doesn't want it. Bush himself is playing it all to the hilt.
and it'll be laden with suspense. This will be a suspenseful announcement that'll break the suspense, and everybody will say, what a fantastic choice.
Republicans certainly hope so, but they'll have to wait until late in their convention to make that judgment, because Bush won't reveal his choice until after his own nomination is voted on. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Washington.
Michael Dukakis' running mate, Lloyd Bentsen, was out campaigning on his own today, trying to do what he was chosen to do, boost the Democrats' chances in southern and western states. Correspondent Deborah Potter reports Bentsen started off with an appearance aimed at highlighting George Bush's big problem, women voters.
Benson's first solo campaign swing is taking him south and west, proof that his selection for vice president has changed the political landscape. With stops planned in New Mexico, Texas, Nevada, and California, the strategy is to win back the Sun Belt from the Republicans.
What we're saying to Democrats that voted for Reagan, come home. We have room for you in this party.
We look forward to him playing a very active and important role, not only in Texas and not only in the South or Southwest, but across the country.
With Michael Dukakis tethered to the Massachusetts governor's office, the Bentsen campaign got off to a quicker start than expected. The curtain raiser, a speech to businesswomen in New Mexico.
Now, how do we make equality of opportunity a reality in America? We can start by supporting the Equal Rights Amendment, and I support the REA.
He meant the ERA, but the verbal slip didn't seem to bother the crowd. Bentsen was telling them what they wanted to hear, something they didn't get last weekend from George Bush. Bush got a much cooler reception when he unveiled his new child care proposal. Polls show the Democrats have a solid lead among women voters.
Well, I don't think it's going to be enough for the Republicans to come on late in the day on some of these issues.
Democratic strategists believe that Bentsen helps the ticket most in areas where many Democrats voted for Ronald Reagan 4 years ago. As one Bentsen staffer put it, this trip tells the Republicans you're not safe anywhere. Deborah Potter, CBS News, Albuquerque.
Further evidence today that the lack of safe, affordable daycare for children has become an important campaign issue in both parties. A Senate committee has approved without opposition a $2.5 billion measure to expand and improve daycare. Committee Republicans and Democrats said they would try to work out differences later. Word leaked out today that President Reagan is planning another try at ousting Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega, a leak that has Mr. Reagan and his aides crying foul. More about this from White House correspondent Bill Plant.
This is something I can't talk about.
Though President Reagan wouldn't discuss it, it is understood that he has signed an intelligence finding authorizing new covert action measures against Panamanian dictator General Manuel Noriega, whom the U.S. has been trying to remove from power for 6 months.
Certainly he is not good for Panama or good for our relations.
The new finding apparently does not authorize any military activity or direct U.S. action to oust Noriega, but seems to be limited to logistical support such as communications gear for Panamanian opposition leaders and for dissidents in Noriega's military. Since February, the Panamanian leader has been under indictment in the U.S. for drug trafficking, but every effort by the Reagan administration to dump Noriega has failed, including the severe economic sanctions which remain in place. Still, a member of the opposition chooses to be optimistic about the situation.
The effort to get rid of Noriega has not failed. Overthrowing a dictatorship is a process.
A persistent critic of the administration's Panama policy, annoyed that the story leaked, says it will just raise expectations again.
It's another example of rather an inept handling of a very sensitive situation. The worst kind of thing is to announce covert actions.
White House sources who say the president is very upset about the leak are blaming Congress. But angry members of the intelligence committees charge that the White House did the leaking, that they were set up because the administration wants to look tough on Panama. One thing on which both sides agree, and that is that the secret finding was no big deal. It won't, said one official, mean any major change in the status quo. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
And still to come on the CBS Evening News, Anthony Mason on an old man on the edge of defeat. Terrence Smith on a new government warning about what we eat. And Susan Spencer on why that doesn't apply to the littlest kids.
Good morning.
Day's looking new and bright.
It's Monday again.
And you're gonna start it right.
Traffic's tied up.
'Cause there's Folgers for you that's decaffeinated too. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Mornings brighten with mountain-grown Folgers decaffeinated. Mountain-grown coffee beans have a more enticing aroma.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Decaffeinated. Here's Jerry with a new car.
What'd you pay for it?
About $5,900.
Are you kidding?
Does it run on batteries? Does it have a motor? Does it have a motor?
Can I kick the tires?
Will the door come off the hinges?
Hey, guess what? It's a Subaru!
Oh, a Subaru.
Subaru!
Only one inexpensive car is built like a Subaru. The Subaru Justy.
Such a smart boy. Oh.
Get up to $1,500 cash back or 4.9 financing on a Subaru.
Captain, this itchy rash is driving me crazy.
Why didn't you use the Cord-Aid?
Cord-Aid goes beneath the skin to actually heal itches and rashes.
You know, itches and rashes won't last if you use Cord-Aid first.
Into the land of heartburn comes the first liquid antacid without that liquid antacid taste. A really good tasting liquid that puts out heartburn's fire. New Tums Liquid. It works. It really tastes good.
The UN Secretary General, following up his talks yesterday with Iran's foreign minister, held ceasefire talks today with the foreign minister of Iraq. So far, Iran is resisting any direct face-to-face meeting. To the satisfaction of President Reagan, the issue of U.S. hostages is now on the table, as we hear from Wyatt Andrews.
The UN chief made it official today. Hostages are on the agenda in the ceasefire talks between Iran and Iraq. The American hostages, he said, and all hostages held in Lebanon.
I intend to do it because of, I think they are good officers, would be very, very useful for obtaining the release of the hostages.
To the U.S., that is good news. It means the UN will add to the pressure Iran already faces and leaves the U.S. content to watch these talks from the sideline.
This is a delicate time, and I would prefer not to talk about it for fear that I might say something that would make their case more difficult.
A delicate time, especially for the families of the hostages.
I don't know if we really will believe anything until Dad just happens to be standing as close as you are away from me right now.
Iran, meanwhile, has been busy sending public signals to the Reagan administration that it wants to make a deal, the hostages in exchange for frozen Iranian assets. The administration still says the only signal it wants from Iran is the hostages' immediate freedom.
Our position concerning hostages is, as always, that is not something that one can negotiate about, that you can't make deals.
But the question now being asked is, why not deal with Iran? At the height of the Tehran hostage crisis, President Carter froze Iran's assets precisely so the U.S. could hold a bargaining chip. In May of this year, France got its 3 hostages out of Lebanon by repaying an old Iranian claim. Some analysts say the administration is still so embarrassed by the arms for hostages scandal, it has backed itself into a policy that won't work.
I think that we are likely to see them come out faster if we look at the broader picture rather than just the hostage issue and begin trying to restore diplomatic relations.
Diplomatic sources insist that this time the U.S. is playing it straight, that terrorism simply will not be rewarded. But they also say that the administration is afraid that Iran could just be fishing for one more desperate act by this outgoing president, and that the danger is that some real opportunity to get the hostages released might be missed. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, the United Nations.
When the Ayatollah Khomeini agreed to ceasefire talks last week, he said he would rather have taken poison. He also told the Iranian people not to question the decision. But as Anthony Mason in London reports, some inevitable questions are already in the air.
To Iranians, Ayatollah Khomeini is the man who overthrew the Shah and humiliated America. Iraq was supposed to be the next conquest in his Islamic revolution. But now, in abandoning the war effort and seeking peace in New York, Khomeini may have surrendered his aura of infallibility.
It is bound to affect his credibility. If Iran is forced to sit down with the Iraqi president to compromise, in effect to humiliate itself, then I think Khomeini will pay a fairly heavy political price for this.
It's Iran's new military chief, Hashemi Rafsanjani, and his political allies who believe the war has to stop. Hundreds of thousands of Iranian lives have been lost. The army has been shaken by chemical attacks. The 8-year war has crippled the economy and undermined the stability of the revolution. Experts say Rafsanjani knew peace would be impossible without the endorsement of the Ayatollah.
Because he's the only single man in Iran who enjoys the kind of authority that could make a ceasefire and a statement that Iran could not achieve all its war aims acceptable to many of the revolutionary hardliners.
The hardliners are said to believe the revolution would die if the war doesn't continue. To seek peace meant taking a dangerous political risk.
Keeping Khomeini's prestige and esteem as high as it was, or saving the revolution. The choice were between these two, and they decided to sacrifice Khomeini in order to save the revolution.
But with Khomeini's image wounded, the question now is, how much damage can the regime withstand if a lasting peace is not achieved? Anthony Mason, CBS News, London.
Defense Secretary Frank Carlucci went to Arlington National Cemetery today to honor Americans killed in the Korean War. Carlucci placed a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns on this, the 35th anniversary of the ceasefire. More than 54,000 U.S. servicemen and women died during 3 years of fighting against Soviet-backed North Korean and Chinese forces.
After flying so many aircraft, I'm not easily impressed with car performance. Then I drove the Cutlass Supreme pace car at the Indy 500. I was impressed.
In USAC tests, Cutlass Supreme out-cornered the Acura Legend and brake better than the Ford Thunderbird LX. And Cutlass Supreme costs a whole lot less.
So I got 3 of them. Hey, I got 2 kids, boys.
And now Oldsmobile will buy the air conditioning for you when you buy a 1988 Cutlass Supreme by September 28th.
Nothing should come between you and your pet. Set the Hearts 2-in-1 collar. The collar that kills fleas and ticks for 5 months. Keeps them off your pet and out of your home. Go ahead. Hug. Snuggle. Tickle him. The Hearts 2-in-1 collar lets you get close to your pet without getting close to fleas and ticks. If you want to hug a happier pet and have peace of mind, get the Hearts 2-in-1 collar.
Why cook in oil, margarine, or butter? All-natural Pam adds only 1/10 the fat and calories and keeps food light and delicious. Pam cooking spray, because how you cook is as important as what you cook.
Now for indigestion, gas, introducing new Extra Strength Malox Plus. It neutralizes more than any leading antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as new Extra Strength Malox Plus.
The flames of July. Fires burned more than 1 million acres in Alaska, with major fires also reported today in Arizona, Idaho, Oregon, Utah, South Dakota, and Washington State. And in Yellowstone National Park, firefighters are battling the worst forest fires there in this century. Jerry Bowen has our report.
Firefighters continue their struggle against an explosive 2,000-acre forest and meadow fire west of Rapid City, South Dakota today. A blaze that forced the overnight evacuation of 500 people from their homes in the rural subdivisions. By this morning, the fire, which had burned 4 houses, causing $800,000 damage, was 50% contained. In Washington State, a 2,000-acre blaze is crackling through rough terrain near Mount Rainier. The fire poses a threat to the watershed system for the city of Tacoma. And at Yellowstone National Park today, the burn area from a dozen different fires now stands at 80,000 acres. Interior Secretary Hodel made an air and ground tour of the bigger fires this morning, trying to blunt criticism of the park policy that generally lets natural fires burn themselves out. Hodel said the kindling dry conditions in the west require a change.
Any fires that start now are subject to being fought. If a fire starts in a lightning storm today, they'll go out and try to nip it in the bud if they possibly can.
Hodel defended Yellowstone officials for not attacking the current fires, saying that less than 3% of the park is involved, that the fires help regenerate the forest. But area ranchers who petitioned Hodel today said the let-it-burn attitude makes no sense.
It's a funny book policy. It never works. So this is 1988.
What kind of conditions has it created for you?
Smoke, that smoke's terrible down here.
The present effort today is mop-up.
High humidity and scattered showers have helped slow the Grant Village fire, which forced the southern exit to the park to remain closed today. And around Old Faithful Village, where the closest fire threat is 7 miles off and moving away, life for tourists is normal, almost on schedule.
With the possibility of rain in the forecast, fire officials are expressing very cautious optimism tonight, coupled with concern that the same storms that bring the rain could bring damaging lightning strikes. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Yellowstone.
You asleep?
No.
Thinking about the house?
Yes.
Sure we can afford it?
No.
Uptight?
Yes.
Buying a home can make you a little uneasy when you don't know what to expect. But if you get the new Best Buyer Guidebook from Coldwell Banker, we'll take you through every step, from finding a home to financing it. So don't get left in the dark.
Is it going to be okay?
Call Coldwell Banker and expect the best. A member of the Sears Financial Network.
Today, hospitals have more medicines than ever to care for their patients. The one they choose most to relieve pain is Tylenol. Look, last year they dispensed Tylenol 10 times more than the leading aspirin and ibuprofen brands combined. With so many pain relievers to choose from, isn't it reassuring to know the pain reliever hospitals use most is Tylenol? That's a good reason for you and your family to use Tylenol too. Tylenol, the pain reliever hospitals use most.
With low back pain, walking can be agony, where every step shoots pain. Up here, you know what helps? New back guard.
Clinically proven back guard is a shoe insert for low back pain aggravated by foot shock. Back guard with its shock trapper module relieves this low back pain. Watch how it helps absorb shock upon impact to reduce the shock to your back.
Amazing. Something down here can help up here.
New back guard from Dr. Scholl's. Absorb shock all day to help keep back pain away.
Surgeon General C. Everett Koop today released his first report on nutrition and health. He said Americans are eating too much fat, too much salt, too much sugar, and just plain too much. Terrence Smith looks at these findings and what critics had to say.
Today's report shifts the focus of the government's advice on the American diet from what you should eat to what you shouldn't.
The report reveals clearly that the health of Americans could be improved by changing the diet to one that contains less fat.
The study concludes that America is a nation of fatties. A shocking 34 million are obese, 60 million have high cholesterol levels, and 58 million suffer from high blood pressure. And nearly 1.5 million Americans died last year from diseases that were diet-related. Why? The Public Health Service has identified the culprit.
At present, dietary fat accounts for at least 37% of the caloric intake of Americans, well above the limit of 30% recommended by the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Society,
and well above other countries, such as Japan and Italy, where heart disease rates are much lower. The report urges Americans to avoid foods like red meats that are rich in saturated fats and cholesterol, and to eat more whole grain foods and cereals, vegetables, and fruits that are high in fiber and low in calories and fat content. Consumer advocates praised today's report for what it said, but complained that the Reagan administration opposes strict labeling laws that would warn Americans what is actually in the food they are eating.
Sugar, rarely on labels. Cholesterol, rarely on labels. Saturated fat, almost never on labels. The very things that the Surgeon General has emphasized are not on labels.
In presenting the report, Dr. Koop described it as a landmark document and compared it to the first Surgeon General's report on smoking 24 years ago. Like that report, he said, this study gives millions of Americans a chance for a new lease on life. Terrence Smith, CBS News, Washington.
Even before the Surgeon General's report, millions of Americans were following sensible diets. But as CBS News medical correspondent Susan Spencer reports, some parents are learning that same sensible diet doesn't make sense for infants and toddlers.
In health-conscious America, the message is clear. Cut down on fat, cut down on cholesterol, cut down on calories. It's such an in thing to do that some overzealous parents figure it's never too early to start. and that's a growing problem.
There are mothers who will go way overboard and cut back on the fat and the cholesterol in the diet in a 2-year-old.
The problem is that when you take it to an extreme, especially in young infants, they might fail to grow.
In fact, below the age of 2, when the nervous system is still developing, babies need half their calories in fat. Hard for cholesterol-conscious parents to believe.
What is good enough for an adult may very well not be good enough for a child.
You hear things, you know, this is a thin society. You don't want your child to be heavy because they'll have problems later on.
Like many weight-watching parents, the Lisses avoided junk food. Their kids ate what they ate: vegetables, lean meat, fruit, no ice cream, no cake, no cookies. And 2.5-year-old Evan gained just 2 pounds in 18 months. Doctors blamed his diet.
I cried. I stood there and cried. I felt almost like a failure as a mother, that I was depriving my child of something and wasn't even aware of it.
The Liss family is certainly not alone. One study last year found that 1/3 of babies a year old were on low-fat diets.
It's like a religion. They believe in it, so we have to work with the parents in coming up with a normal diet that will allow the child to grow.
The problem for parents is figuring out what is normal. Even the experts disagree how much fat there should be in a child's diet after the age of 2. But at least there are 2 precious years when, along with not having to work or worry, almost no one has to diet. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Manhasset, New York.
And that's the no-fat CBS Evening News. Dan Rather. See you tomorrow. Good night.
Mom sure make life easier. Mine did. Like another mom, Phillips Milk of Magnesia. Phillips Mom helps your body work naturally for easy overnight relief. Even has this convenient dosage cup. Nobody treats you better than Mom.
How could Thompson's Water Seal be improved? It's great already. Well, Thompson's could apply itself, but we've improved Thompson's with 50% more active ingredients for more waterproofing power on wood, brick, and concrete. Thompson's, the first name and lasting protection.
Color Tile introduces the spectacular floor tile sale. Every square foot of floor tile is up to 50% off. This handsome earth tone ceramic, just 59 cents. This floral pattern ceramic, only 89 cents. A country look, just $1.19. These dramatic vinyl tile selections from 64 to 87 cents. It's only for floors, only at Color Tile, and only through Sunday. The spectacular floor tile sale.
Bring the beauty home. Color Tile.
Looking for whole wheat total?
Grape nuts.
You'll need 4 boxes to equal the vitamin and mineral nutrition in just 1 box of total.
Okay, shredded wheat.
You'll need to put away 12 boxes. Total, 1 bowl, 100%. No other cereal has more vitamin and mineral nutrition.
I think I'll have total, sweetheart. Total.
If it's whole wheat total, it's total nutrition.
And now when you buy Total or Total Cornflakes, we'll kick in a pair of Legs Active Support Pantyhose free. That's a $4.49 value, free from Total.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow, a woman who was a pen pal with Anne Frank.
Also, Arthur Ashe and Lynn Moody from Knots Landing on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS. Coming up on Eyewitness News tonight, Nashville churches take action to convince movie theaters not to show a controversial film on the life of Christ. The verdict comes in for the man charged with a series of rapes in Nashville, and a summer camp with a message. All of these stories and a lot more coming up next on Eyewitness News.
In this drought, conserving water is everyone's responsibility. Here are some things you can do to save water at your house. Fill your sink rather than running water while you shave or brush your teeth. If you use a dishwasher, do only full loads and use